Welcome to Living Your Path. I am Cecile Ferry, a coach and astrologer. I'm here to guide you on how to live and work in alignment with your true self so you can find fulfillment and serenity. Hello, my beautiful friends. It's great to be back this week with a fun, juicy episode that I have for you. So you may see from the title that we are going to talk about astrology a bit today. And I thought, hang on a minute, before I get into that, I do need to tell everyone here, to all my listeners, just a very small but very central thing about astrology, because you may be new to it and I have never really explained to you, so I want to do it now before we get started, like why I believe in astrology and why you may be naturally a skeptic about astrology. So let me start with that. I really believe, now that I have seen what astrology is like and I have studied and learned the tools, the theory, the science, if you like, behind it. Okay, so now that I'm kind of on the other side, I understand why people feel the way that they do about astrology. And I was the same way 2 years ago, right? So if you think astrology, it's all like a bit fluffy or a bit woohoo, or that it just doesn't work, or what I hear a lot, it's horoscopes. People think astrology equals horoscope, but I think it's just because we've been conditioned, right, to think that way. And that's the only thing we know about astrology. It's just by reading little horoscopes here or there, like in a magazine. I remember when I was a kid, in those kind of cheap magazines that you would read them, and then now you look at them online. So the thing is, this is how we are introduced. This is what we know about astrology. It's those kind of things. And now with the knowledge that I have, I can say to you, this isn't astrology at all. It's more like, what would I call it? It's more like entertainment. It's more like the pop culture version of astrology, if you like. It's either going to be too generic or it's going to be wrong, full stop, right? Because you cannot provide relevant, accurate information in terms of astrology to an audience in a kind of a mass setting, a mass sort of way. And you cannot. And so I think that's the problem and that's the danger, and that's where astrology has fallen short, and it has frankly earned that reputation, rightly so, of just being not accurate and just being a whole lot of BS, right? Because it has been shared in ways that are not the right ways. Basically, what I'm saying is astrology needs to be personalized. And I'm going to be banging on about that all season. And wherever I can, I will give you advice that is either completely tailored to you and personalized, or I'll give you advice that's not personalized, but I will give you massive caveats. So if you read something that doesn't have a caveat to it, then it's not accurate, it's not reliable, and I would not recommend you waste your time reading it. Right? So I hope you can be discerning now. I would stay clear of all the websites that are about news and entertainment, like anything about, grabbing attention. It's there to drive readership. It's there to drive traffic, because people like this stuff, right? Because everyone needs to know what's going to happen. No one likes the uncertainty, and everyone likes to know. Okay, fair enough. But it's a shame that the content that you read is not the right level of content, and it's not what astrology is about. So when you hear from a proper astrologer, you will hear caveats, or you will hear how to personalize the advice that they give to you. And basically, you need to know your birth chart. You need to have done it, and ideally to have a reading on it, which I can offer. But that is the way, because everything needs to be put into your context. And just to give you an idea without being too broad, if you base yourself on a sign, you belong to that sign. We know which sign you were born under. That is a fact. But where in the sign can create nuances. And also, there's so many more aspects to your birth chart that impact that sun sign that you may or may not relate to a paragraph written about that sign somewhere, right? So you are the sum of a big, big chart. And when you read something in the press or online, it just gives you a little piecemeal of something there that's very general. Chances are it may relate to you, but it also may not at all. So it's just not, I have learned it and I just can't get myself to do this. Like, I would be doing you a disservice if I was just coming up with these generic things. So now that I have addressed that, I hope that you can be like, oh, okay, so maybe I give this a go, because what you tend to read that's called astrology is usually quite different from what I share here and what other colleagues and people in my space, astrologers, share. So please give it another go. Don't let yourself be limited by previous experiences, and, open yourself again maybe to hear and then see for yourself. Okay, so now I have spoken about that and you're like, okay, but today you're talking about different signs, and I thought we'd have a bit of fun and talk about what your sun sign says about your career. So because I'm a professional astrologer, here is the massive caveat that I need to give to you. Okay, everything that I'm going to share here is more like, think about it like trends. So they are accurate, but they are not the full picture, right? I'm not going to describe you to a T, because I did that to listener A. It wouldn't be right for listener B. So this isn't a personalized career horoscope, people. It's more like trends that are likely to resonate with you. And also, this is for you, but I also want you to use this episode for people you work with, your managers, your team members, your own staff and employees, right? So this just to help you understand them better on surface level. There might be more, and there's probably more going on with them based on their whole chart. But what I'm sharing, I know is correct for those signs, but I'm not making bigger prediction, personalized prediction, and I'm certainly not going to talk here about job roles and compatibility. I think that needs to be taken in a bigger context. So that bigger context is doing a birth chart reading. Because when we look at the whole chart, we can look, there is a specific point of the chart that is called your midheaven, and it's your career point. There is also the 10th house, which is the house of career. And then there's a 6th house of everyday habits, skills, work, task. And then we also look at your 2nd house of talents and self-worth. Right? And in those houses, we look at all the planets and all the signs impacting them. And of course, we look also at your moon sign and your rising sign. Especially the rising sign is how you express yourself into the world. So very linked to your work. And we look at those signs and how they interact with themselves and with the different career placement, right? So see, like, there are many, many other data points. So today I'm only going to talk about your sun sign. So I'm just scraping the surface, okay? But I'm putting the massive caveat to it. I'm not saying everyone is going to resonate with everything that I say, and this is the be all and all of your career. Far from it. It's just a little taste test, and it's an accurate one. Okay, so if you enjoyed this and if you want to find out more about yourself, I offer either birth chart readings right now, and I'm going to remind you all that I have a special rate that is on offer until the 31st of December 2024, and that's my launch offer, and I've taken $30 off the price. So I really, really encourage you to go and book this, even if you want to have it done later next year, but get the rate. It's on my website. And then I also offer career astrology readings. So it's like a cut down version of the birth chart, and it's over 30 minutes. But if you like the full birth chart is better value, I would highly recommend that over the career one. But if you're like, I just want an intro into it and I'm really all about career right now, maybe you just need the career one. So that's 30 minutes, and you can go and book it online as well. I'll put the links in the show note. All right, so I've done all the intro. I have spoken about why astrology gets a bit of a bad rap. And why there's now, you can tell the difference between what's kind of mass astrology, which isn't really that, and what is personal, like serious professional astrology. And I have given you the caveat, so we are ready to go. Let's run through the 12 signs of the zodiac. So we'll start in order with Aries. So Aries, they're often leaders, they're managers because they have a lot of drive and determination. Not so much, they're not as strong with the human and interpersonal side of things. So they just like, let's go people. They have great motivation at work. They don't mind taking risks. They actually don't fear things as much as other people. So that's their strength at work. They're bold, they're courageous, but they can also be impulsive or not always really noticing how that might impact other people. It's a great fit for entrepreneurs. I meet so many entrepreneurs that are Aries because they have that mix of drive and independence. They're often self-made, like they can be also working in like a corporate career, but they've been like working their way up because of that drive. So they're not always the best team players just because it's just not their strength, right? And as an employee, it's important to make them participate and build this sense of self-worth. They might need help also, like if they are your staff members, like in their areas, they might need help curbing their emotional reaction. It can be challenging because they just come up and they feel very reactive about that. So, there may be those at work that tend to like have a mini outburst and get more angered, for instance, because that's the energy of Aries. But, it's because, on the other hand, that energy allows them to be like quick fire and go people. Now, I'm going to move on to Taurus. So Taurus are much quieter at work and they can actually appear quite shy. They take longer to think and to contribute, which can hinder them in like a setting that is really fast-paced. And they might feel like they don't contribute in the moment as they are taking time to think. Like their thinking speed, so to speak, doesn't match always, the fire signs, for instance. But they should always contribute later when their reflection is fully formed. So the great thing about them, they're very steady at work and they will stay long in a role. They don't really like change. They don't really like risk. So they're great stabilizers, if you like, but on the other hand, like they will be a bit risk averse. They create very, really good, high quality work. Like think especially, they do very refined presentations. They do things that are practical and easy to digest. And as a manager, they will always be providing good advice and will always be supportive. So Taurus actually make a really good 2IC to a leader, or a good, yin and yang if you've got a leader that's got more of fire sign or is always like quite impulsive. We need some of that energy, but it's really good to match that with Taurus energy that is a lot more stable and simple and refined. Okay, moving on to Gemini. So Gemini is an air sign, so they have very active, big, strong brain, lots of intellect at work, and therefore they're great contributors to conversations. They question things and they love gathering information, learning and knowing the facts. So you will see them a lot into data and, absorbing content at work. They're also great multitaskers. So like a lot of people do that at work or in life, but they actually do great at it themselves, the Gemini. And they're also good at social connections at work. They need that, they enjoy that. So they tend to be the ones organizing the drinks and the social activities. They also like and absolutely need variety in their roles. So if you're managing them, make sure you give that to them. They can also be anxious because that great thinking abilities that they have, it can tend to turn into sometimes overthinking. So it's important for them to manage their need for information. So ask rather than being anxious. If you are an employee, ask your manager. Managers reassure your staff. Like it's important there is good flow of information to prevent any kind of additional overthinking. All right, I'm going to move on to Cancer. They are the caretaker at work. So that's a water-based sign. They are all about the feelings. They're always there to listen, to care for, and to support colleagues, bosses, anyone alike in the office who needs help. They're very protective, very empathetic. Think like that kind of mothering in a positive way energy. They're great advice givers and they're great listeners. The work environment is very important to them. They need to feel that sense of safety, of emotional security. Like they might really particularly like working from home because home for them is a safe and heaven space, to recharge. And they may not feel that way as much at work. So a really good work environment and culture is important to them too. So the thing with them is they can take on other people's emotion at work just because they're always the shoulder that people are leaning on. And then afterwards, they might not realize all of that has piled up inside themselves. So they need to learn to empty that out and also to seek support themselves when they need it, because they tend to be there for everyone, but they don't give that to themselves as easily. As managers, they're great because they're very caring. They're always checking on people. And they also actually need a manager that is caring. Other than that, they might retreat in their shell. We are on to Leo. I'm going quite fast across the sign because I don't want this episode to be too long. So I'm on to Leo now. So the Leo people at work, they like to express themselves at work and through their work. And they thrive when they can share more of themselves to some kind of an audience. It doesn't always have to be like an actual stage at work, but it could be through an audience through emails. Like they need to be able to share their point of view, their stories. So they actually make great presenters at work and great storytellers. Give them the opportunity to, and they will, because they're also very creative. So it's all about them being able to express themselves and them feeling confident to do so. So they don't all like to present and perform in front of an audience. Some really are afraid of the spotlight. But when they learn to go beyond that and to do it, and when they feel safe to share more of themselves and their work, they will find that they feel really amazing. It gives them a lot of energy and a lot of confidence. And then afterwards, that turns into really positive benefit for people around them at work. So they shine onto others and they really inspire people when they share more themselves. They make very charismatic leaders, and they are people with a very warm heart, very caring energy. So great in the workplace as well, because they bring that care and that warm heart to their colleagues, to their managers, or to their staff members if they're a manager. The only thing to know is they need to feel appreciated themselves in return. So if you have a Leo manager, make sure you tell them all the great things that they do, and same if they are your employees. They're not going to be asking for it, but when you do give that to them, it really gives them a boost. It's like they take a bit of a leap just putting themselves out there, and that is what they're seeking in order to feel safety back. They are also very loyal people at work, and therefore they expect loyalty back. So again, a great sign to be a manager in the workplace. Just, making sure you balance your need for validation and approval as well, that you don't become too reliant on that, or also that you don't fall into the other extreme of being overly confident or, wanting to kind of have too much attention on you, because that's not balancing your Leo sign really well at work in that case. Now I'm going to move on to Virgo. So Virgo have two massive strengths when it comes to work. The first one is they're great at analyzing things in detail. So they've got like an X-ray kind of brain, and they can just see the picture from the top, and they can zero down, and they can see every little detail, and therefore they can break down things that can be complex, and they can make sense of everything, and they can fix it, and they can, whatever's going on, they can put it into some kind of an order, and they can make it function better. So they're great at bettering things because they can see the nuts and bolts of them, and they have the strategic thinking and the practical sense and the organizational skills to then, place some kind of order through that. So that's number one. At work, they're great if they can use those skills of analysis and problem solving. And then secondly, they really like to be useful and to help others, which is a great attitude at work. They make really good colleagues and managers. As managers also, like Virgo are quite big on well-being and health. So if your manager is Virgo, they're going to be supportive of your well-being, which is really good. So their pitfall, the thing about Virgo is that they really like to better things, but sometimes to the point of perfection, and they can fall into that cycle of perfectionism and be also very self-critical. So if you have employees that are Virgo, like make sure you provide good feedback to them so that they realize maybe they might be judging themselves too hard. And if it's you at work, like be mindful, because don't push yourself too hard. Like Virgos can lead to being workaholic, and they can be prone to burnout. And I know about this because your podcast host here had a career burnout. And whilst I don't have Virgo as my sun sign, for instance, I have a lot of my career placements in the Virgo sign, right? So again, that shows you that what I'm giving to you based on your sun sign is not enough. You need the full picture. But if, you resonate with certain signs I'm talking about today and they're not your sun sign, it's probably because they might be your rising sign or your moon sign, or you have planets in that sign in your career area of your chart, which is my case. In the house of career, I have like 3-4 planets in Virgo. Right? So that's why I resonate with that. I'm great at analyzing things. I like to support others. And perfectionism is one of my plague, and self-criticism as well. And I have learned the lessons the hard way with my burnout. So it could be you as well. If you're managing Virgos, make sure you give them routine, structure, and organization, because they would really thrive. All right, let's move on to Libra. So back into air sign mode. Libra is at work. They are the great diplomats. They are the mediators. If you've got any kind of argument going on, you need someone sorted out. Libras are your people. They're very balanced when they live the full expression of their sign. They balance people. They are peaceful. They're there to restore and maintain harmony. Don't we love harmony at work? So they're great team players. And they are great managers because they will always seek consensus, and they will provide fairness for everybody, and they can stay calm during crisis. Their pitfall is that they can be stuck in indecision, because Libra will always think about, okay, there's me here, but the other person on the other side. They always think about the other side. They cannot think of just their side, which you might think is great. But then the problem is, they will always, they can't think mono, they think stereo, so to speak. So when there's a decision, they will think about one thing and it's contrary. So they need help. And you may need help at work. So if that's you, you may need a manager that's going to make those calls, and just ask for that. And also the thing is, because they can't just think about themselves, they can find themselves giving into other people way too often. So that is the ghost of the people pleaser, especially at work. They might find it really difficult to say no. So then they can end up working a lot as well and can end up burnt out. It's because they just want to do it all. They have to do their work, but also help other people. So they can end up overworked as well. And they are quite avoidant to conflicts. They're not good with that. So be really mindful to not confront those people. Or if it's you, it take a lot of care if you end up in conflicts, because that is not something Libra people like. So be mindful about people pleasing, and as employee, like if they're your staff, I would encourage them to open up about their feelings, so it doesn't just sit there. And to finish off, I will say they love a beautiful work environment. So whether it's at home or in the office, like make it really pleasing aesthetically, because that will contribute to them doing really well. So here comes Scorpio. They are the psychologist at work. Whether you know it or not, they can read people deep down. They've got this ability to see under the surface of things, yet they themselves like to keep a lot of things to themselves. They're quite secretive, but they're very perceptive, and they like to investigate things. They like to know, to find things out, and they have a lot of inner power. I'll get back to that in a second. At work, they have a really great ethic. They're quite passionate. They put a lot of passion into their work, and they love to solve complex problems, like things that to other people might look really obscure. Like for them, they will just get into it, and they also have a very high intuition that helps them. So if you like, they can see what other people can't see. So it's great to have them on your team to solve some complex problems. So the thing with them, they're really big on honesty. So don't tell them lies, whether they are your boss or your employee, because they will smell it and they don't appreciate that at all. So they want the truth and they're very intuitive, they're perceptive. So you can't really lie to them that easily. They've got a high EQ. And in terms of work style, they're quite comfortable working independently, working by themselves. They don't need, like a Leo might need, the feedback of others. Like, they're like, I'm good. The pitfall, so I talked about them being powerful. And so it's the way they apply that power at work or in other parts of their life. So either they apply it positively to really like see deep into things and to transform things for the better, or they apply it potentially in a not so good sense, and in that case they can turn into people that have controlling behaviors, that are intense and can be manipulative or jealous, right? So you may have had a manager that was a Scorpio, and that's not to say all Scorpios are bad managers, not at all, but you need to see how they're going to use their power. And same, some employees are going to be difficult to manage because they're not managing their power for a greater cause. They are using it to control, to be possessive or obsessive. So Scorpio can go either way. And if you have a manager who is using their power, a Scorpio manager, in the wrong way, please leave. Now I'm going to move on to Sagittarius. They're great at work because that's another fire sign. They bring full enthusiasm, very positive, confident, optimistic, nearly borderline too much, like they've got that faith that things are going to work out. And they love to explore. So they're a sign that just likes to learn different things. Freedom is important to them, as is travel. So when it comes to work, they cannot be caged up or stuck in the same boring task. They're great at big picture thinking, like vision, and they can really lead a team forward, but they need to be careful about impulsivity or picking a course of action too quickly. As manager, they can be always moving on to the next thing. Same for employees as well. So if you have a team, like if you're a Sagittarius manager, make sure you provide people with enough structure. And if you are an employee, like be mindful that you're not always jumping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and never really properly finishing or choosing a direction. That can be how your career has unfolded so far. But the great thing is Sagittarius will always share what they have learned from all their exploration, right? And they also need to watch, in terms of attitude, they can be a little judgy of others. Not saying all of them, but when it's not the highest expression of their sign. They can be a little judgy of others because others might not move as fast as them, or they might do and think another way. So important to remain open to other people's point of view. Now, moving on to Capricorn. I know Capricorn because that's me. It's called the CEO of the zodiac. So it's like a sign that we're very much aligned to the workplace, to be honest. It's the archetype of the businessman or the businesswoman. Hardworking, methodical, reliable, has great self-integrity, and working steadily towards their goal. To be honest, they perform extremely well as employees because they like to achieve things and to master things. So if you're recruiting people, they're Capricorn, really good sign to recruit, to be honest. I don't know any Capricorn that has performance issues at work. They're great workers because of all those qualities. And they're also great at setting up and following rules and processes, structure. And they're great at managing project end to end and to use strategic thinking. So if you like, all the strength of their sign lend themselves really well to a work environment, okay? And they also make great managers for all those reasons because they can organize things and do all of that. Now, the downside, they can be a little too serious at work. Have you noticed? Like, oh my God, I didn't have fun at work for a very, very long time in my career. And they can be more of a solo worker. And so they are not great at teamwork or contributing to the culture. Whilst they can, they just often choose not to. And they're not anti-culture and anti-working with others. But it's just their natural style is they prefer to be alone. And because also they're so disciplined with themselves, they can end up being perfectionists as well, like our Virgo people, overwork themselves and being overly self-critical. So me with my Virgo career placements and being a Capricorn, those two things led me to burnout because I was like, I can do this and I want to do this. And, it's very hard to stop a Capricorn if you have noticed. But if they are your employee, give them structure and goals. If you are one, make sure you demand that at work because you will thrive when you know what is the path and, what are the steps along the way, and the gatekeepers. And if they are your manager, I'm not talking about my old staff members, but don't be deterred by their tough or cold exterior. Know that they are holding themselves to very high standards. Yep, and we can't get rid of them. And they are not good at communicating their emotions. That being said, everyone can learn. And I am a Capricorn person, and I also a great people manager now because I have learned my way. We're down to the last two signs. Thank you for your patience. Those people have been waiting. My little Aquarius, here we are. You like to be independent at work. And often Aquarius people are entrepreneurs as well, like Aries, or they're consultant, they're working in freelance. They do need some kind of freedom, some kind of room and space. And they need to be able to do things their way. So they have a quite unconventional, different kind of style. So they don't fit in, if you like, often with the mold. I always think of Steve Jobs. It's a bit cliche, but as an Aquarius, but that is exactly what I'm talking about here. They bring very innovative, forward-thinking, visionary ideas. That is goal at work and they can be sometimes quite disruptive, but it's because their thinking is often ahead of its time. And so what they see and what they think about, no one else like us down there, we just don't come up with that. That is their edge. So they make a great addition to teams or to brainstorming sessions. If you've got an Aquarius brain somewhere, just treat them really well and bring them along because their mind is just next level. But they need to feel safe to do so. And if you're an Aquarius person, hopefully you can find that forum at work where you can share your ideas and you can be yourself. And that includes, working your way, dressing up the way you want to dress up at work. They are not conventional people, Aquarius people. So Don't put them into a box. They're not going to like it. And likewise, they don't look like they're overly bonding emotionally with people at work. Their emotion goes through more the intellect. So they like those intellectual connections. If you like, they're more likely to be organizing a conference at work than social drinks. Right? But it's their way of bonding. And so the downside of Aquarius, they can be sometimes a bit erratic, could be inconsistent or unpredictable, or we know that disruption can be taken too far. They can be a little like stubborn. Like, again, I think of Steve Jobs, right? He wrote people off the wrong way. So they can be a bit of a challenge to manage, or if they are your manager, like it's not easy, right? So they need either way to manage their communication with people really well. And last but not least, our Pisces. So back into Waterland here. Pisces are big feelers. They're very creative at work. They're very adaptable, go with the flow. They like to help others, and they're very hardworking as well. They've got a very strong intuition and sense of empathy. So they make very good managers, provided their emotions are balanced. So if you like, they're so caring that they can be over-caring, nearly overbearing, and also they can absorb other people's emotions and stress. Just because they're this, water sign, they feel everything that other people feel. So to be a good manager, they need to keep that in check, and not take on everybody's emotions, because they're going to be weighted down and they're going to be drained by that themselves, and it will slow them down. And they also need to be grounded, because their great strength is they've got the ability to think, higher than a lot of us. They can get lost in their creative sense, right? Their imagination. And that's why they make great inventors, for instance. So if you want creative ideas, your Pisces are awesome for that. But therefore, they need good boundaries, and you need to keep their feet on the ground at work quite often, because not every workplace is set up that way. In particular, they don't do super well in workplaces where it's kind of fast-paced and a little harsh. They need a caring workplace where things can be quite fluid as well, where, project processes, you can work things as you go, you can evolve things, they can have time to bring their ideas about and contribute to things. So if you're in a system where things are just set in stone and you just have to follow the rule of the book, it's going to be hard for a Pisces employee. And also because they can get lost a little bit, and that has been also I have been working under Pisces people, they can appear confusing. It's not their intention, but because they're a little bit thinking in different ways, and they're water-based sign, especially to people that are more like earth signs, like a Capricorn, or air signs like a Gemini, they don't always follow the Pisces. It for other people, it can be a little confusing. So they need to really clarify and lean more into structure, which is not something they love at all. But they still need to foster that great sense of creativity, adaptability, and fluidity, and that is great in the workplace. But also channel that into work, or find a workplace that has a lot of water energy, if you like, and that has a very flat kind of hierarchy and a different way of working, where everyone can be more fluid that way. All right, my friends, these were the 12 signs, and I could go more and more about them, but I'm conscious of the length of this episode. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope that you've been listening to your own sign and things maybe have ticked with you. And also use that to think about the people that you work with. Just ask them what the sun sign are. It always will give you a little bit of intel about them, and you can use everything I've shared today. Feel free to go back, take some notes. Use that as a little fun quiz at work next week, and ask people what their sun signs are. and use that to better get along at work, because when you know what people are like, it makes a big difference. I've been doing this work not just with the sun sign, but also with moon and rising signs in the workplace and running those activities. And it's been really not only fun and enjoyable for everyone, but it's been really helpful and powerful. So those things really work. And so if this speaks to you and you're like, I like what I've heard today, I'd like to find out more, please have a look on my website and check out my birth chart reading option and the career reading option as well, so that you can get yourself booked and learn a lot more, because then we'll see your whole picture and it will be totally personalized and you will gain a lot more, it will unlock a whole new level of insights for you. So thank you for being here. I hope you've enjoyed it. Take care this week at work. Don't get too stressed. Don't get too caught up into the madness, because the year doesn't end. It's just going to be a break and we'll all be back to it next year. So take care, everyone, and I'll speak to you in the next episode. Bye for now.